All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to, or I'm not sure what I'm going to name this podcast, but it's going to be something like this. Don't be afraid to change doctors or leave the hospital that you're in if you don't like it. Now that title's super long, so I don't even know how that's going to work. But I do want to do a podcast on this because I think I'm seeing more and more, especially as my family's getting older, and I'm around a lot of people that need doctor's care, including, if you know anything about me, both of my daughters. One had a liver transplant, and then one has type 1 diabetes. Besides that, I had a mother who has some health issues throughout her life, her latter part. Same with my father. I think if we're all going to start living into our 70s and 80s, there's going to be health complications, most likely. Not everyone, but I think most likely you're going to have some type of issues to a certain degree. I don't care if it's your heart, your teeth, there's many other things, but there's a lot of things that people have problems with as they age. But, the one thing I just had basically he's like my stepson. He just had some issues. His lung collapsed out of nowhere. We thought it was COVID. It wasn't. He had to have a few surgeries, and they finally got everything up and running. And, it just seems like for some reason or another, I'm in and out of a lot of hospitals sometimes, even if it's going with my daughters or just being around other people that have illnesses. And I think a lot of people come to me. I think one is because they know I try to work out and try to live a healthy lifestyle. That does not mean I don't have issues, believe me, by any means, physically, mentally, anything. But they also know I think that I'm, because of my daughters, and I spent so much time in and out of hospitals. One year, I think I was in a hospital more than I was out of it. So I kind of know the system a little bit and what it's like to be involved in that. But in this case, what I want to talk about is I think, and I see this with a lot of, not always elderly, but a lot of people, is they fall into a situation where they're not comfortable necessarily, or they don't feel, or they don't know, I should say, if the care they're receiving is the right care. It seems like they're either up in arms and they hate where they're at hospital-wise, a lot of times, or they seem to love it. All right? That's kind of what I found. Not always in the middle. So that's kind of what I want to talk about here. But here's the deal when it comes to your health. I'm just going to say this. You always have the final word. And I think sometimes when you get caught up going to maybe a certain doctor or doctors for a certain amount of time, you feel obligated, or you start to build friendships and this trust and this bond, and I understand. But as time goes on, if you're not feeling better, you're not seeing the results you desire, it may be time to leave. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. That could go for the hospital as well. A lot of people want to find everything very convenient, a lot of times too, where sometimes it's going to be inconvenient. So a lot of people get attached to hospitals that are near their house, which is understandable. If you got to drive, or you want to be as close as possible, but the reality is a better hospital for you may be 2 hours down the road. And I'm going to kind of give you a heads up on kind of what I went through very quickly regarding this. Let me get some water here. So my oldest daughter, was born with a liver issue. And she had a couple surgeries, very little, right when she was born. And then we ended up, right after she turned 1, having a liver transplant. But before we went and actually had the liver transplant, we were having issues with her, and we were going to a local hospital for children, which is a very kind of well-known hospital in Orlando, Florida. I don't want to throw them under the bus. But you got to realize this is 23 years ago, so things weren't nearly as advanced as now. And the town of Orlando was much smaller. But we were having problems more and more. And me and my ex-wife, finally had to say, listen, we want to know who's the best doctor, and I've mentioned this before, maybe on a podcast, you may have heard it. Who's the best doctor in the world that can help my daughter? Because I previously knew people that had had children that passed away, that got attached to a certain hospital and doctors, didn't want to go out of network, didn't want to travel, and I'm sure after their child passed away, they would have done everything they could to save that child. But, again, sometimes we're just naive, or we put too much trust, or we think things are going to all of a sudden just kind of turn around when you have sick children, or if you're sick. Like, you know what, I think this is it'll get better. It'll get better in the future. We try these meds, we'll try this, and it doesn't seem to happen. So I kind of was attuned to that. And I said, where's the best doctors in the world? Literally the best doctor that does this in the world. And out of a fluke, they said, well, the best team right now is out of Boston. So I said, well, if the team's there, I'm thinking he's there. I said, okay, then we're going to go to Boston. And they said, no, but he left there, if I'm not mistaken, and he's in Chicago now at Children's Memorial, starting another team, which is supposed to be the second, like they're up and coming to be one of the best teams. So I found it quite interesting because I love sports, and I'm like, do I go to the best team? You know what I mean? Or do I go to the best doctor who's now training another team? It kind of was one of those decisions, but I said, the bottom line is I'm not dealing with the entire team. I want the specific doctor, right? Even though I think he was still affiliated with Boston or he overseen things, I want to meet that doctor. And so we met with them, and you're talking through everything. Some things are in network, out of network, but we basically had to move out of the state for a long period of time to make sure our daughter had the best medical care. I was very fortunate. My family lived in Chicago. I was from Chicago, so that worked out. But it wouldn't have mattered if they said go to Iran. We would have went. And they saved her life. It's been incredible. And let's fast forward to now. So she's been going to Gainesville, which is a really good hospital. But I went years ago, 20-something years ago, they have a Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And I said, I went there with my ex-mother-in-law, who's wonderful, who had health issues, and they were great. And I don't know if you know anything about the Mayo Clinic, one of the best, I think, facilities when it comes to medical in the world. Not just, they're out of Minnesota, but it was a much smaller hospital 20-something years ago. But I always wanted my daughter to get into Mayo Clinic. They're just unbelievable. And we finally just had it happen. What's interesting is she's one of the youngest girls or people there because it's a lot of elderly and even middle age, but Jacksonville, the hospital who they take care of, is a lot of older people for the most part. Because we just had to go twice to get her vaccines, and they couldn't believe how young she was, and it was, whatever. But I wasn't able, my ex-wife and everybody, we were able to get her in there. Now, my other daughter who has type 1 diabetes, we're trying to get her in there as well. And the thing is, too, not only are they incredible, they treat you unbelievable there. There's kind of a feeling that if you're somewhere where they're known for being the best, there's a point where you kind of just feel different. My kids even know it's incredible. And my point, the reason I bring up all these things is when it comes to your health, you have to make it first. And you have to sometimes, do things that are out of your comfort zone. It may not even financially work for you, and I get it. But I can assure you, if you keep getting sicker or even end up dying, it's all for nothing. And a lot of people don't realize that. Again, is Gainesville near me? No. Every time we're going, we got a 2.5-hour drive all the time. And that is what it is. But even when I moved back to Florida because I didn't like the way my daughter was, after a certain amount of time being in Chicago, she wasn't doing very well. It wasn't because of the medical attention. I think it was because of depression. She was always cold. She missed Florida. She just did not like Chicago. So I brought her back, but I was flying back constantly to Chicago. Cost a ton of money. I'm not kidding. It cost, between everything, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, but none of us care. It was about saving my daughter's life. Same with you. You sometimes have to look at what you're doing, saving your life. Now, again, it may not be this year or next year, but if you are getting a certain type of care that is not good for you, you have to nip that in the bud. You need to get the best care as quickly as possible. I'm just telling you. Now, I'm not telling you got to move to Chicago, go to Boston, or do any of these things. I'm not telling you that. But what I am saying is you should definitely put in a lot of time to research, because you may not even realize it, but there could be a doctor that's, maybe another 30 miles from you that's world-renowned. You don't even know that, especially if you're older and you're not savvy online. You may want to ask your grandchildren, your nieces, your nephews. I don't know. Whoever's a little savvy, start doing some research. Do not be stuck at a place you don't want to be. I'm just saying, especially when it deals with your health. Not only if you're going to that hospital, you're not feeling good or you're aggravated, that's taking a toll on you emotionally, besides you not getting the care that you feel like you're getting. So I just want to do a podcast on this. If you have any questions or comments, you're more than welcome to hit me up. Don't underestimate how important it is to be in the right place when it comes to your medical or your health. It's a game changer. And again, like I said, it's not just about now. It's about the future. And things may change too. And I will say one thing that regarding when my daughter, before we had her liver transplant, when I said, where's the best doctor? Even the doctor, he was very kind to say, you know what I mean? It wasn't like he was saying, this is out of our league, but he kind of made it sound like, listen, this is something that's very, this is a specialty, obviously, having a liver transplant. But you gotta, how do I say this? Like, it was kind of up to us to really do what we had to do. They kind of did as much as they could do. And I think a lot of hospitals, they can't say like, hey, we can't take care of you anymore, we don't want to, because a lot of them do, and they don't want to give up. And there's also a financial aspect to that they don't want to give up too. You got to realize a lot of times they don't want to lose their patients, but at the same time, it's not personal. Nothing is personal when it comes to your health, okay? That could be even a trainer. I talk a lot about fitness. If you have a trainer, and he's beating the shit out of you and you're not getting what you want out of it, maybe he's a good friend of yours now, right? He could be someone that's world renowned, I don't know, or somebody very highly recommended. If he doesn't work for you, he doesn't work for you. So when it comes to these things, you got to understand, step aside, have a serious discussion, and just say, listen, I'm going to go try, this person. I'm going to go get another, whatever it is, another opinion. So please don't sell yourself short, especially if you're older. All right? All right, if you got any questions or comments, hit me up. Take care, and I wish you nothing but the best.